Hey, GHC users. A bit of an update from Bruce and I, sharing a bit about what's next for GHC. But a few people have asked about sort of how we've got to here, even, and where our story started. Bruce, we met on this sounds like a dating story, but we met on an online chat forum, a Facebook user group for Elvanto, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I was exploring some new ways to represent data, and somebody said, "Oh, there's a smart guy down in Sydney that's doing some really cool stuff. You should try and pinch his ideas." So I think we connected up, and you showed me your spreadsheets, and I pinched some ideas. And
I believe you hassled me about my spreadsheets. You heckled me about them not being very shareable.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't share it with me, and they didn't work. So that was interesting. But yeah, fortunately, you were not only open to reconsidering that, but also sharing some of it. So some key bits were your pet sparklines, which you prompted us to adopt, and it's a really key feature of what we've done, which just shows what people have been doing.
It was COVID last year, and so all of our rhythms were just naturally disrupted. But out of that came some space for you and I to do some work, and it sort of just one thing led to another. I think initially we just had the idea of sharing a pretty basic dashboard that was basic, generic, and it sort of just kept growing, didn't it?
Yeah, I think what was good was we were both rooted in functioning churches that had data and valued data, and we both we had something to work with, but something we wanted to do more of. I think we'd both gone through the experience of collecting attendance data from Elvanto. That was not every church does, but both of us were doing it well at that time, and that prompted us to kind of merge that in with other bits of data and see what we could learn about what people are doing and who needed care.
So to date, we've released the checkup is where we started, the health checkup, which was the basic 4 gauges, no attendance data. And we got a few churches on that. Then we released the toolkit with all the attendance, then all these add-ons, including the latest stuff on Flow Explorer. We've got a missions flow in the pipeline that's not yet released. We've certainly, we've come a long way, and we're just about to release on Planning Centre Online, which is, a big step forward. But we've got to the point where, with 150 churches on the books, we can't keep doing this, Bruce.
It does seem to be growing, and the hours in the week don't seem to be. So we do need to think hard about how we're going to take it forward. I think we've used a set of tools and packaged them in such a way that it doesn't take a lot of support, and it's been manageable to date with those sorts of numbers. But if we wanted to add a 0 to that, if with going to Planning Centre, we open up the US, and as I've heard lots of churches over there, we could really be victims of our own success in some ways. So that's going to be a challenge ahead.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. One is we want to keep meeting the support needs of users, onboarding them, answering questions, and we're sort of growing a knowledge base around that. But I think even with GHC in play, churches, there's a lot of, I think, we can do to help churches use GHC even further. And so we're starting to hear churches of using GHC in that middle space between vision and its execution, and keeping a focus on their progress towards that. Helping churches to actually use GHC to that level, is something we're quite passionate about. But that's more time. And so I guess where we're up to at the moment is we need to expand our efforts, and Growing Healthier Churches, has become a company in its own right. And so we need to expand our ability to help people. Tell us a bit about some of our thinking around this, Bruce.
So as we go forward, I think neither of us really want to turn this into something where money gets in the way of people actually getting benefit from it. But by the same token, once people start using it, we're conscious that they'll want to keep using it and know that we're there to help them, or to add something new on, or to have something new in the pipeline. And so somewhere in between those two extremes, we've got to come up with a bit of a plan, which is to, as you say, ask for some basic subscription support to just keep things going. If people value it, then it's got to be worth something. My experience with ChurchBot has been that I've got 70 churches using that. Nobody's paying for anything for any of it. But at the same token, it's all dependent on me. And if that stopped, so would that service. And there's probably a bit of a learning from that and want to do something a bit more sustainable with GHC.
Yep. We're conscious that we have a range of churches that we're helping, from larger churches to smaller ones, and the smaller ones are not in a sort of don't have a capability to pay for another sort of subscription that might be expensive, and so we're thinking about how to sort of manage that price point. So we'll probably go forward with a few different price points for different size churches, offering the same service essentially, but just recognizing that church sizes are different, and even the bigger churches will use our services in slightly different ways as well. Look, the way we're going to sort of share this with our current user base is, firstly, we are thankful for you using GHC, your input, your questions, and the way you've been using it has really helped shape how we then design and evolve GHC. And so firstly, thank you for using it and being part of this community. And even startup. Secondly, I think we're going to continue allowing GHC to be used by our current user base. But if we'd encourage you to subscribe. So at the moment we're not sort of turning off the tap, but more encouraging people to subscribe. And the way you can do that is you can log into My GHC, go to your account page, and there's now a couple of extra tabs there. And if you do subscribe, we do have a couple of carrots on offer, the Turbo Toolkit and My Team GHC. Bruce, what are these about?
So there's two challenges that to improving GHC they've been working on for a while. So one is finding your reports and finding your dashboards. Probably most churches get a link and it's just a whole lot of gibberish in a URL, and they circulate that in an email to somebody. And if they want to bring up the dashboard later, they've got to go back and find that email. It's a common problem with most dashboarding systems. So I think the idea of having a place to store those URLs you can just go to and click on the link and bring up your dashboards, I think that's really powerful and quite unique in what we're offering there. And then the further ability to share that amongst your team is something quite good. The second thing after you've found your report is the time it takes to load. Even with smaller churches these days, people expect instant response. They want the graphs and the numbers to be there in front of them. And because we go back and get live data from Elvanto every time, there's a bit of a lag there. So we've managed to wrangle one of the tools that's part of the Google Data Studio called the Extract tool, which provides a really close local copy of data that it takes out of Elvanto once a day. And we found a way to be able to get churches to configure that and adopt that without having to get too technical. So we've branded that the Turbo add-on, or the Turbo setup, because of what it reflects, data that appears instantly once you switch over to that mode.
So let's give users a bit of a look-see on this, because I think this is really quite impressive, and it's been, based on the feedback that we've received from users, particularly larger churches. Some larger churches were trying to take screenshots of the dashboard after it had loaded up, and then sharing screenshots because it's just taking so long. But I've set up the Turbo Toolkit for our church here, and so instead of opening up the Health Toolkit, I'm opening up the Turbo link. And whether your church is 5,000 or 300, it's about the same time to load, which is about a second. And it's been a sort of passion of mine is to prompt a curiosity to explore the health of your church. And so now we can sort of really quickly zoom into kind of like, oh, that's an interesting kind of bit here. Let's click on that, and boom, you've got the results filtered straight away. The group strategic page. That was a hefty page to load, and now it's instant. So we hope that that's actually going to be a serious blessing to all size churches, but especially those larger churches that were struggling with the load. And the second thing you mentioned there was the setup or the team feature. So if I went into account now, we have this My Team GHC. I've got 3 active users in my team at the moment, and all 3 of those have accepted that. So once you set up a new team user through this, they'll get an email. They'll be able to log into My GHC as a team user. They won't be able to see all the things you see as a team administrator, but they can see all of the dashboards that have been saved in the My GHC. So they'll see that open turbo link, as well as some of these add-ons that I've got share links saved for. So, being able to bring everyone together is a significant thing. But let's also just maybe touch on, we just talked about subscriptions. We're at the moment offering 3 subscription price points, just based on, the estimation of your church and what you can afford. And so we might have to change that in due course, in terms of where that price point sits, but we want to open up kind of the possibility or the opportunity to subscribe and get those extra features. For the rest of you, you'll be able to continue to use the dashboards as you currently do. Look, we continue to be passionate about helping your ministry leadership team to focus on the health and growth of your church. And thanks for all of your feedback that has helped shape the way GHC works. And thanks, Bruce. You're a powerhouse, and love your work.